Thank you. First of all, I want to clean up some of the things that have been said here in the past. When people talk about the number of crimes committed by people in this country illegally, and people claim that they are more law-abiding than the native-born here, the reason they can make that statement is nobody keeps track of the number of crimes who are committed by people here illegally, right? If I walk into a Wisconsin jail and ask the sheriff how many of these people are illegal immigrants, he has no clue. We've got a federal prison in Wisconsin, and I've toured the federal prison, and I asked the warden of the federal prison, how many of these people here are in this prison are people who are illegally? He has no idea. So whenever you hear a politician say that people who are here illegally are committing less crimes than the native-born, they don't have a clue. The second thing I want to point out is, because they're lost in the debate, is the huge number of people who come here legally every year. And they try to set those of us up who want the current law enforced as being some mean people who won't let anybody in here. Right now, on a rolling average, every year, we have about 800,000 new people sworn in as new citizens. 800,000. If you look at that historically, it is high. When I was a child, that number was around 200,000. So we are right now letting in, legally, a very high number. Right now in this country, 1/6 of the people are foreign-born. We have never had so many people in our country foreign-born as we do now. That is more than even in the late 1800s, when we had all the immigration from Eastern Europe and Germany and what have you. But for whatever reason, they don't talk about that. Now, if we do believe in immigration laws, we should remove the people who tried to sneak in here illegally. That, to me, is also obvious. And insofar, nobody knows exactly how many, insofar as President Biden let 8 million people in this country illegally, if we're going to have our laws mean anything, it means ICE and Border Patrol and whoever should remove those 8 million people. I don't know any serious person who believes we should only remove people who've committed a serious crime, right? If 8 million people came here illegally, 8 million people should be removed. Now, we've had a long hearing here, and we're having this hearing because of the horrific acts committed by people who are in this country illegally, and sometimes it's easy to forget the wonderful people whose lives were cut short by the zeal of what I think is the Democrat Party trying to change America as quickly as they can and letting everybody under the sun here. But in any event, we'll start with Mr. Abraham. Do you want to share with us a little bit of your daughter's history and what her dreams were, so that whoever's listening today can see what life was cut short because of letting all these people in our country illegally?
Yeah, Katie was a special person for sure. She had this unique personality, drew everyone in, and always made people feel seen and heard. But I actually want to ask questions, actually Ms. Pierce and then the Congresswoman who kind of stepped away, Scallon. The inconsistencies I'm struggling with here. So they're complaining about children being exploited, but I didn't hear these voices from 21 to 25. Were you talking about that too? Because maybe I wasn't paying attention. So as wonderful as Katie was and how she got sacrificed by awful policies, she was sacrificed, there's no question about it. People knew a preventable outcome. This is part of the equation and calculation, okay? This is 100%, I believe. But it just seems to me strike the inconsistencies that, oh, we're so worried about now. I don't know, but you know, over the last 4 years, nothing, not a word from anybody. So I'm just confused, I guess. I don't want to talk about it because I don't think anyone here cares. So I don't want to waste my breath on that. I just want to know, why the inconsistency? Why is it only one side and the other? That's what I'd like. We'll talk after this. I'd love to hear how you're saying now is important, but back then it wasn't important. So anyway.
Thank you, and I think it comes from there just people want to dramatically change this country, and they'll ignore any ounce of common sense to change America.